the certain way of prosperity. Now, in the book Science of Getting Rich, the word certain is brought up very often. I counted about 80 times throughout the book. He speaks about doing things in the certain way. Now, as we've been discussing all throughout our conversations, it's how we go about doing what we do each day. From the premise of our vision realize that brings forth the opportunities that were always there, lightheartedly associated with the vision. And from that premise, all things in harmony and in contribution to that vision reveal themselves. The process, or the journey to that destination, we can say is done from the perspective of faith, the certain way, the way of certainty. So reflect upon this with me in regards to your prosperity. Riches in whatever shape or form. However you define prosperity to be, let's recognize an important realization. While knowledge can be experienced through the five-sensory world, the sixth sense is the source. Now, this perspective lights up the understanding of this certain way. As we discussed in one of our recent videos, Nikola Tesla would travel into his imagination and reveal the invention that was already there. Buried within each individual is the source of it all, everything. And by traveling into this infinite world by imagination, all invention, innovation, and artistic inspiration are revealed as already existing in the higher mind, ready for human expression. And that's done by walking in faith, or as he says, going about doing things in the certain way. So he says, no matter how tremendous an obstruction may appear at a distance, you will find that if you go on in the certain way, it will disappear as you approach it. But if you hold to your faith, you will find that the failure is only apparent. See, he used words in an interesting way. Going about, doing things in the certain way, all of a sudden we see these opportunities. I remember a while back when I was doing this work for this construction company, IT services, they hired me in to go in on a consulting arrangement with them in which they were looking at a CRM, client relationship management software. And the owner of the CRM software mentions to me that the way they designed it was actually to manage their own internal operations. So they created the CRM as a way of improving efficiency or being more effective within their organization while they were doing services for other businesses. As they were going about doing things in the certain way, as in recognizing, because we had this conversation, everything is in harmony and in contribution to the goal, the vision, the definite chief aim. What happened was they realized that they can benefit from putting in the CRM to help them with their internal operations, managing their relationships with their clients. And they developed this in-house. And eventually, their clients started asking them to integrate that CRM solution into their business. And it was a specialized CRM for a certain industry. And that industry could benefit from the specificity of how that CRM was constructed, addressing the operations of that particular industry. And so they found this opportunity within their organization. What was once a business of providing certain products or services to one industry became transformed into a business providing this CRM solution for others in that same industry. And that's how their business grew. So in regards to how he communicates, let's look at this. But if you hold to your faith, you will find that the failure is only apparent. Only apparent. So let's look at the word apparent here. There are many ways of relating to the word apparent. Here's an interesting definition that I found. Seeming real or true, but not necessarily so. So let's use this definition and relate back to the quote, where he says, "But if you hold to your faith, you will find that the failure is only apparent," as in seemingly real or true, but not necessarily so. Now, this is something that is experiential. One would benefit from greatly making flow a priority, as I suggest this all throughout the video, and showing up on each project, task, initiative, and doing it from the perspective of the certain way, which is from a place of faith, confidence, that some way, somehow, even if you apparently can't see it, will contribute to realizing your goal and your vision. That's the way of certainty. And so he says it here as well, in relation to that example that I gave when I was brought to this consulting deal. He says, if you have no capital, you can get capital. If you are in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. If you are in the wrong location, you will get into the right location. And you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present locations to do things in the certain way, which causes success. Now, I've experienced this on my journey. I've watched, when I had my IT business, my business evolve. What started out as, I'm going to provide office IT services, opened up to point-of-sale systems, managed services, consulting deals, partnerships with other IT companies, partnerships with cable companies to install the cabling infrastructure, the fiber optic networks, in which I got paid referral fees, all by being open to this idea of doing things in the certain way. And this is, again, experiential while we are in flow, because when we are in flow, watch the Flow series, we experience this fluidity of mind. They recognize that the different projects, initiatives are some way, somehow in contribution to the vision. And if so be, it's time to transition. As he says, it will happen. You will know. This is also another way of saying, listen to our intuition. Beyond the five sensory experience, we have the sixth sense, also spoken about to a certain degree in Think and Grow Rich. And as you work with this information, we understand it even more so. We listen to ourselves. Simply put, we understand things from the inner and outer. And as I mentioned earlier, although we could look at five sensory knowledge, when understood from the premise of inside, when we may have looked at things in a certain way, no pun intended, we start to look at things in the certain way of certainty from within, and understand it from the premise of our vision realized. And then things begin to make sense. What sense? Sixth sense. We understand from within. He says, do not forget for a moment that the thinking substance is, through all, in all, communicating with all, and can influence all. And if you look around and you see anybody who has expressed creatively, be it in arts, invention, innovation, they first imagined it as the reality. And so all is sourced from within. It's beneficial to open up to possibilities that you can also have this experience. One of the great joys that I have nowadays is having these conversations. And if a person says to me, well, I have this vision, although, and then they express some fears, doubts, and indecision, resistance, I say that's fine. We don't have to fight the resistance, doubts, indecision. Let's have a conversation about how, when we look at any invention, artistic expression, or innovation, a lot of times the entrepreneur or the artist speaks about the word chaos and their ability to find order in that chaos. They experience it internally. It even expresses itself in their environment. And that's fine. And what has allowed me to make peace with it is that idea that it's fine. And this allows me to go about doing things from the perspective of the certain way. This seeming failure seems to be real or true as we go back here. No matter how tremendous an obstruction may appear at a distance, you will find that if you go on in the certain way, confidence, faith, reality is the affirmation in mind, vision is fact in imagination, it will disappear as you approach it, and it does. How? Well, you'll see in your experience. And I would say that this is not new to us. When we look back at all the prosperity that we've realized in our lives so far, we recognize that this was the way. We might not have known how it was going to happen. As he says, do not forget for a moment that the thinking substance is through all, in all, communicating with all, and can influence all. You allow it to be received within. Some refer to this as downloads, hunches, inspiration. I say intuition. I always love to reflect regularly with you as we have these conversations on the Steve Jobs commencement speech in which he said, and that was very helpful to me, I make following my heart and intuition a priority. Maybe at one point I had fears, doubts, indecision, associations, interpretations within, which I released it via the power of the subconscious mind. And I recommend watching the video that I did on the power of the subconscious mind by Joseph Murphy. Identify the thinking patterns and make peace with them. Release them. Happens instantaneously. And then I go into the state of mind that's one with my vision. And I go about doing things in the certain way. He says, the desire of thinking substance for a fuller life and better living has caused the creation of all the sewing machines already made. This book was written in the early 1900s. And it can cause the creation of millions more and will, wherever set in motion by desire and faith, and by acting in a certain way. So again, certain way. We relate this over to certainty, faith, confidence, trust. And it's important to find the word that resonates with you, as words have individualized associations from within. For example, the word apparent. One definition is clearly visible or understood, obvious. This definition here, seeming real or true, but not necessarily so. I always recommend, and being in the space of direct response marketing, consultative selling, and copywriting, a deep fascination of mine, I found that it's important to speak to ourselves in a way that we understand ourselves. And so whatever word that implies, going about doing things in, as he says, the certain way in which you relate over to what he is revealing, which has been, from my experience and many experiences that I've had, revealed in conversation with others. And I would also like you to reflect on your journey. When you are certain you made it happen, it's actually a great exercise to sit down, to journal, and reflect back on your life and see the times where you operated with certainty, when you did things the certain way, and how magical and miraculous the results were. The world within is infinite, and we can access the infinite ways of revealing our prosperity by doing things in the certain way. As mentioned, he says the word certain around 80 times in this book. And so he says, you can certainly have a sewing machine in your house, and it is just as certain that you can have any other thing or things which you want, and which you will use for the advancement of your own life and the lives of others. So operating from the premise of certainty, or we could say confidence or faith, and so we want to apply some street knowledge here. We want to read between the lines and go into the feeling of what this implies. And it's that feeling of certainty that we operate from. that indicates that a person is living and walking by faith in harmony with their vision. And it all starts with a clear mental image, as we've been talking about this. A person commits to, in their imagination, what they desire to see in reality, in existence, whatever that prosperity is for that person. As he says, form a clear and definite mental image of the things wishes to have, to do, or to become, and hold this mental image in thoughts while being deeply grateful. Now, we can benefit from concentration. And by concentration, I'm speaking of lighthearted concentration, which to me is expressed in our day-to-day activities in relation to our goals and visions, everything we do in our life. I like to go about doing things in the certain way, which is with certainty, as in everywhere I am, that's exactly where I want to be. And when I'm working on my tasks, my projects, my initiatives, I recognize that some way, somehow, it is in harmony and in contribution to my goal, my vision, my definite chief aim. Each person knows the things that they want to do. Whatever it is that they want to do, they show up and do that thing with certainty. Painting, working on their invention, conversations with their clients. And to supplement this, we have some exercises here that I would like to integrate into our conversation from William Walker Atkinson. Number 1, sit in a comfortable chair and see how still you can keep. Now, this might not be as easy as it seems, as you will have to center your attention on sitting still. This can be practiced in the activities that we do each day. For example, I have some plants, and I go about watering and caring for my plants in this certain way. As in, I genuinely want to be there. As in, hunches, inspiration, ideas can show up at any moment. And as I remain in this autotelic way of being, because I genuinely enjoy being there and caring for the plants, I do get hunches and inspirations, visions. It seems at times that I have conversations with my plants. This is what I find when I'm in nature as well. I've mentioned this many times, that there are places that I go and I run, parks, in which inner conversations, ideas, hunches, and inspirations are received within. And we can also practice this with these exercises. So again, sit in a comfortable chair and see how still you can keep. Watch and see that you are not making any voluntary muscular movements. By little practice, you will find you are able to sit still without a movement of the muscles for 15 minutes. At first, I advise sitting in a relaxed position for 5 minutes. After you're able to keep perfectly still, increase the time to 10 minutes and then to 15. But never strain yourself to keep still. Be relaxed completely. You'll find that this habit of relaxing is very good. Another exercise he gives, watch concentration. Sit in a chair and place a clock with the second hand on the table. Follow the second hand with your eyes as it goes around. Keep this up for 5 minutes, thinking of nothing else but the second hand. This is a very good exercise when you only have a few minutes to spare. And always try to keep as still as possible during these exercises. And this can be applied for the different activities that we do. For example, when I'm working out at the gym, I do this with the mind and muscle relationship. I can tune out the entire gym and recognize the one-with connection of mind and muscle. And so he also says that, say that you have some desire, a wish you want fulfilled, or that you need some special advice. You first clearly picture what is wanted, and then you concentrate on getting it. As in, you are that person now. Reality is the affirmation in mind. That vision is fact in imagination. He says, have absolute faith that your desires will be realized. And so we gain the things that we desire by concentrating upon it. And that's what's harmonizing the conscious and the subconscious as one. And we allow the subconscious mind to express by going about doing things in the certain way of certainty. A natural way of going about doing things. So from working with this information, I would say that the certain way of prosperity, going about doing things in the certain way, is the way it feels natural to you. I believe it's important, and I encourage it all throughout these videos, that each person recognizes that they have within themselves their own way, their own path, their own style of doing things, their own authentic way of being. And that to me is the certain way. So when we say somebody's operating from the perspective of certainty, and you have a conversation with that person, in that moment, they'll say, this is what I genuinely want to do. This is what I intuitively feel like doing. They may or may not know how it's related to their vision. However, that certainty, we see opportunities present themselves. People want to be around them. Everything they touch turns to gold. And their prosperity is revealed in a flow-based, autotelic way. And going back in the beginning here, as he says, no matter how tremendous an obstruction may appear at a distance, you will find that if you go on in the certain way, it will disappear as you approach it. I've noticed this so many times in different areas of my life. As he says here, but if you hold to your faith, you will find that the failure is only apparent, and we're looking at it from the perspective of this definition, seemingly real or true, but not necessarily so. What I notice is that seeming obstacle, disappears. Sometimes I don't see it anymore. Or I see it for how it truly is, which is in harmony with the goal or vision. Or somehow, reality changes on its own. I may be doing something, I might not be doing something. And bringing it back to the premise of our conversation, this is the certain way of prosperity. All those things take care of themselves from the being. The being, reality is the affirmation in mind. I am that person now. And I live from that premise. If I have tension, reactivity, fears, doubts, and indecision, it's fine. I'm able to release it in the moment as I recognize that this is within me. All of it is within me. The goal, the vision, the prosperity is inside of me. And I allow it to express by going about doing things, whatever it may be. Each person knows. From the premise of certainty, doing things in the certain way. Living life with certainty. Living life the certain way. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an autosuggestion to further encourage. You can say, I recognize the certain way of prosperity, for reality is the affirmation of prosperity, the completeness, the wholeness within, which expresses itself as symbolic representations of prosperity in different areas of my life, sourced from my internal state of certainty of prosperity one with, expressed symbolically in career, financial, spiritual, intellectual, physical, family, social, that which I define in my imagination as prosperity. I recognize that with mind, experience as the certain way, in confidence, faith, trust on my day-to-day experience in relation to my goals and visions, inventions, innovations, artistic expressions, and authentic ways of being, all in harmony and in contribution experientially. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.